Chapter 1. The Offer. Captain Alexander Cole stared intently at the holographic screen in his quarters aboard the Galactic Frontier, the most advanced Terran fleet ship currently in operation. The space around the ship stretched infinitely, filled with stars that burned like scattered embers in the cold void, and distant celestial bodies floating in their silent orbits. Beyond this calm, however, was a tension brewing within the boundaries of the galaxy, something far darker, far more dangerous. The Zathar. That was the name that sent shivers through even the most hardened of soldiers in the Terran military. A mysterious race, the Zathar had appeared on humanity's radar only a few decades ago, but in that short span, they had earned a reputation as one of the most formidable species in the galaxy. Their military might was only surpassed by their inscrutable ways. One could predict their motives, their goals, or their strategies. It made them all the more terrifying. And now, humanity stood on the brink of war with them. It wasn't a surprise. The two species had been butting heads for years. What had started as territorial disputes in the unclaimed regions of space had escalated into full-on skirmishes. Border patrols disappearing. Ships going missing. Then came the massacres, the Terran colonies on the edge of space, mysteriously wiped out in a single night. The Zathar never claimed responsibility, but no one else in the galaxy could have done it. Their fleet movements in the sector were a clear sign that something was coming. Now, Captain Cole found himself in the eye of the storm. The Terran government had dispatched him and his crew to negotiate with the Zathar before the situation spiraled completely out of control. However, negotiations had proven fruitless until today. Cole paced the length of his quarters, his boots echoing off the metallic floor. He hadn't anticipated the development that came mere hours ago. Commander Zyra, the lead representative of the Zathar forces, had made an unexpected proposal, a private meeting between the two of them. No aides, no diplomatic entourage, no security. The offer was as surprising as it was cryptic, and the exact terms of the meeting were even more bewildering. "Spend one night with me, Captain Cole," Zyra had said over the encrypted comm channel. Her voice was low and melodic, yet laced with a strange power that had sent a shiver down his spine. "And I will tell you everything you need to know." Cole didn't know what to make of it. A trap? An attempt to disarm him and hold him hostage? Or was it something else entirely? He couldn't afford to dismiss the offer, not when the fate of so many lives hung in the balance. He ran a hand through his short-cropped hair, frustration gnawing at him. The diplomatic strategies drilled into him during his years of service seemed inadequate in the face of this bizarre proposition. A soft chime from the door interrupted his thoughts. Straightening his uniform, Cole steeled himself as the door slid open to reveal the towering figure of Commander Zyra herself. She was just as formidable in person as her reputation suggested. Standing nearly 7 feet tall, Zyra's presence was magnetic. Her skin shimmered with an iridescent violet hue, catching the light in a way that made it seem like she was made of liquid metal. Her long, silver hair was tied back in a warrior's braid, and her eyes sharp, piercing, and metallic seemed to analyze every aspect of her surroundings with a predatory intensity. The Zathar uniform she wore was sleek and elegant, designed for both combat and command, and it accentuated the toned, muscular frame beneath. "Captain Cole," she greeted with a slight nod, her voice as smooth as ever. "I trust you've considered my offer?" Cole stood firm, refusing to let his unease show. "Commander Zyra," he replied, inclining his head in return, "I've considered it. But let's be clear, this isn't exactly a standard diplomatic procedure." Zyra's lips curved into a faint smile, though it was devoid of warmth. "Diplomacy is rarely standard, Captain, especially when the fate of our civilizations is at stake." She moved further into the room, the doors sliding shut behind her with a soft hiss. Her movements were graceful, almost feline, and Cole couldn't shake the sense that she was in complete control of the situation. He crossed his arms, maintaining his composure. "Let's get to the point then. What exactly do you mean by spend one night with you? Is this some kind of test? A negotiation tactic?" Zyra chuckled softly, though the sound lacked humor. "You're suspicious, as you should be. I understand. The Zathar are not known for revealing our intentions easily. But I assure you, Captain, this is not a trap. Cole arched an eyebrow. Then what is it? Zaire's eyes gleamed as she stepped closer, her imposing form casting a shadow over him. It is an opportunity. A chance for you to gain the knowledge you seek, knowledge that could prevent war between our peoples. And in exchange? Cole asked warily. The commander's smile widened, a glint of something playful yet dangerous in her expression. In exchange, you must trust me. Completely. For one night. Cole's heart skipped a beat. He had dealt with strange diplomatic protocols before, but nothing like this. The Zather had always been secretive, their culture a mystery to humans. But this proposition bordered on something more personal, something far outside his comfort zone. I can't just abandon my duties to entertain a mysterious alien proposition, he said, his voice steady but cautious. If this is just a game, then the lives of millions are at risk. Zaire's expression softened, though her eyes remained as sharp as ever. It's no game, Captain, and I promise you what I offer is more valuable than any information you've ever received. The secrets of the Zather, our true intentions, our motivations, everything will be laid bare before you. But first, you must prove you are willing to face the unknown. For a moment, Cole felt the weight of the galaxy pressing down on him. The Zather's superior technology, their cryptic behavior, their unpredictable aggression, so much of humanity's future rested on understanding them. He had been chosen to lead these negotiations because of his experience and adaptability, but nothing in his training had prepared him for this. He studied her for a long moment, searching for any sign of deception. But Zaire remained unreadable, her silver eyes steady and unwavering. What happens if I refuse? Cole asked finally. Zaire's smile faded, and her tone grew more serious. If you refuse, Captain, you'll walk away from the only chance to prevent the war that will decimate your people. The next time we meet, it will be on the battlefield. Silence stretched between them, the weight of her words settling in the room. Cole's mind raced, calculating the risks, the possible outcomes. He had a duty to his crew, to the Terran Alliance, to find any path that avoided unnecessary bloodshed. But agreeing to this personal request? It was unprecedented. Still, if there was even a sliver of truth to her offer, he couldn't afford to pass it up. One night, Cole said finally, his voice low but resolute, and you'll tell me everything? Zaire nodded slowly, her smile returning, though this time it was more enigmatic. Everything. Chapter 2. The game begins. The hours had passed, and Captain Cole found himself standing in his private quarters, waiting for Zaire's arrival. He had already informed his command staff to remain on standby. Soren, his second-in-command, had voiced concerns unsure of the nature of this meeting, but Cole had insisted. He couldn't afford to let fear or uncertainty dictate his actions. Not when so much was at stake. The room around him was dim, save for the pale blue light filtering in from the stars outside. The low hum of the ship's engines reverberated through the walls, a familiar sound that usually provided comfort in times of unease. But tonight, there was no comfort. A soft knock echoed from the entrance, snapping him from his thoughts. It was the commander. Cole's pulse quickened, though he forced himself to remain calm. This was just another mission, another negotiation. He had survived countless dangerous encounters. This would be no different. With a deep breath, he stepped forward and pressed the panel to open the door. There she was. Commander Zaire stood in the doorway, and for a moment, the galaxy itself seemed to shrink around them. She was no longer wearing her black military armor, but instead something more fluid, something more ethereal. It was a robe-like garment, shimmering in shades of deep blue and silver, almost as if she were draped in the starlight itself. Her long, silver hair was unbound, cascading over her shoulders, and her violet skin caught the dim lighting, making her look like an otherworldly deity stepping out of legend. "Captain," she said softly, her voice smoother than before, almost intimate in its delivery. Cole swallowed hard, fighting the sudden rush of nerves. "Commander Zaire, please come in." She stepped inside, her movements as graceful as always, the soft rustling of her robe the only sound that filled the otherwise silent room. The door closed behind her, leaving them alone together. For a brief moment, Cole was acutely aware of the smallness of the space compared to the vastness of what was at stake. He gestured to the seating area, a modest table with 2 chairs. Would you care for something to drink? We have various human beverages, or, if you prefer, I can arrange for Zather wine from the ship stores. Zyra regarded him with a curious expression. You are concerned about hospitality in a time of such uncertainty. That is very human of you, Captain. Cole offered a tight smile. We humans tend to hold on to our rituals in the face of the unknown. She nodded, walking toward the table but stopping short of sitting. Tell me, Captain, what do you think is truly at the heart of our conflict? Cole took a moment before answering, watching her carefully. Was this part of the game? Was she testing him? I believe, he began slowly, that we fear what we don't understand. And both our species are guilty of that. We've had only limited contact with your people, and most of it has been through violence. The Zather have secrets, and we're trying to piece them together. I think that lack of trust on both sides is what's driving us toward war. Zyra's silver eyes seemed to glow as she listened, her gaze never wavering from his face. Perhaps you are correct, she mused. But there is more to it than that. She gestured to the seat opposite her. Sit, Captain. This is not a confrontation, but an exchange. The night is young, and there is much to discuss. Cole hesitated briefly but complied, sitting down across from her. The tension in the air was palpable. Despite her calm demeanor, there was an undercurrent of something far more complex than simple diplomacy happening here. You said you would tell me everything, Cole reminded her, his voice steady. What exactly do you mean by that? Zyra smiled, a small, enigmatic curve of her lips. The truth, Captain. The truth about the Zather, about our intentions, and about why this conflict cannot be avoided unless we do something drastic. The way she said it, with such finality, sent a chill down his spine. Drastic? She leaned forward slightly, her gaze intense. Yes, but first, there are things you must understand about my people, things no human has been privy to before. She paused, letting the gravity of her words sink in. Cole waited, the silence between them growing heavier by the second. The Zather are not like you, she began. Our society is built on principles that are incomprehensible to most outsiders. We do not function as a singular organism like humanity does. We are fragmented, yet unified. We are bound by a code that predates your species' existence. Cole narrowed his eyes, confused. What do you mean by fragmented yet unified? Zyra's fingers danced along the rim of her glass as she considered her next words. The Zather are many. We are not merely a species but a collection of tribes, each with their own strengths, weaknesses, and philosophies. At any given time, the leaders of these tribes vie for power, for dominance. But we are also bound by a collective will force that compels us toward a common goal when the time is right. Cole processed her words carefully. So, you're saying your people are constantly in a state of internal conflict, yet you can unify when there's a threat? Zyra nodded. Precisely. It is why we seem unpredictable to you. You cannot understand the shifting nature of our alliances, the way we move as one when necessary, only to dissolve into chaos when that necessity fades. Cole leaned back in his chair, trying to grasp the implications. Then how do I know which version of the Zather I'm dealing with right now? How do I know you won't turn on us the moment it suits your people? That is the question, isn't it? She said with a soft laugh, though her eyes remained serious. But that is why I am here, to ensure that you understand what we want, and what I want. Her words hung in the air, and Cole felt the weight of them pressing on him. This wasn't just a negotiation of information. It was a negotiation of trust. But there was something more personal, more intimate in her tone. Why you? Cole asked suddenly. Why are you the one leading these talks? What do you gain from this? Zyra's expression shifted, becoming more guarded. For the first time, a flicker of something vulnerable passed through her gaze. Because, Captain Cole, I am one of those who believe in unity. And if I do not succeed in stopping this war, my people will devour themselves, and yours will fall in the aftermath. She stood suddenly, her presence filling the room, commanding his attention. This is more than just politics, Captain. This is survival. For both our species. Cole felt the gravity of her words settle in. The stakes were higher than he had imagined. He had thought this was a simple diplomatic meeting, a way to avoid war. But now, it seemed like the war was only a symptom of something far greater. Zyra moved toward him, stopping only inches away. Her eyes bored into his, filled with a strange mixture of intensity and desperation. "Spend the night with me, Captain," she whispered, "and I will show you the truth." Cole swallowed hard, the tension in the room thick enough to cut with a knife. He had no idea what she truly meant, but he knew one thing for certain: there was no turning back now. Chapter 3. Unveiling the Truth. Captain Cole could feel the weight of Commander Zyra's words pressing down on him as he stood there, inches from her, with the silent promise of secrets yet to be revealed hanging in the air. The intensity of the moment was palpable, the very atmosphere thick with tension and something else, something he couldn't quite place. Without another word, Zyra turned and moved toward the large viewport in his quarters, her back to him as she gazed out at the endless sea of stars. She seemed lost in thought, her imposing figure silhouetted against the faint blue glow of distant galaxies. Cole watched her for a moment, his mind racing to make sense of everything that had transpired so far. There were still so many unknowns, so many questions unanswered. He knew that the next few hours could change the course of history or send them spiraling into catastrophe. As he took a step forward, Zyra spoke again, her voice low but clear. "You humans think you understand war. You think that by gathering enough intelligence, enough data, you can predict the outcome of every battle, every conflict." She turned slightly, her silver eyes gleaming in the dim light. "But you do not know the kind of war that is coming." Cole furrowed his brow. "We've faced countless enemies before. Pirates, insurgents, rogue AI, entire fleets of hostile alien species. We've survived it all." Zyra turned fully to face him now, her expression deadly serious. "Survived, yes. But what's coming isn't just a war of guns and ships. It's a war of wills, of philosophies. A war of survival, not just of bodies but of entire ways of thinking. The Zathar do not merely fight for territory or resources. We fight for dominance of the mind, for control over the very fabric of existence." Her words sent a chill through Cole. It was hard to grasp what she meant, but the intensity in her voice made it clear that this was no ordinary conflict. He had always suspected there was more to the Zathar than met the eye, but this was something deeper, something that went beyond politics or military strategy. Zyra began to pace slowly, her long robe flowing behind her like liquid shadows. "The Zathar are bound by an ancient code, a law that governs our people across the stars. But that law is not eternal. There are forces within our ranks, factions, who seek to overthrow it. They believe that the time has come for the Zathar to transcend the old ways and impose our will upon the galaxy." Cole folded his arms, trying to piece together the puzzle. "And you're one of the ones fighting to stop that?" Zyra stopped in her tracks, turning to face him with a solemn expression. "Yes. There are those of us who still believe in balance, in the preservation of life not just for ourselves, but for the galaxy as a whole. But we are few, and our enemies are many. If we fail, the Zathar will become a force of chaos, consuming everything in its path, including humanity." She paused, letting the gravity of her words sink in. Cole felt the weight of her statement like a stone in his chest. He had always seen the Zathar as an enemy, but now, he realized they were on the brink of a civil war that could engulf the entire galaxy. "So," Cole said slowly, "this isn't just about avoiding a war between our two species. This is about stopping something much bigger." Zyra nodded, her gaze piercing. "Yes. If the wrong faction gains control, it won't be a war, it will be an annihilation. They will see humanity as an obstacle to be eradicated, not as a potential ally." Cole took a deep breath, the enormity of the situation settling in. He had come into this thinking it was a simple negotiation, a chance to broker peace and avoid conflict. But now, it was clear that the stakes were far higher than he had imagined. "What do you need from me?" he asked finally. Zyra stepped closer, her eyes locked onto his with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. "I need you to understand, Captain. I need you to see the truth of what is happening within the Zather. And I need you to help me stop it. Cole frowned. Help you? How can I possibly help? I'm just one man. A small, enigmatic smile tugged at the corners of Zaire's lips. One man can make all the difference. You have power, Captain, not just because you command a ship or because you represent humanity in these negotiations. You have something much more valuable, a mind that can see beyond the surface, a heart that still believes in the possibility of peace. She reached out and placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch surprisingly gentle. The Zather do not trust easily, but you have earned my trust, and with that trust, you can gain access to knowledge that no other human has ever had. Cole felt a strange warmth spread through him at her touch, a sensation that was both comforting and unnerving. He could sense that there was something more to this, something beyond the political machinations and strategic maneuvers of their respective governments. Zaire's voice softened as she continued. But before I can give you the answers you seek, you must understand our ways. You must see the truth of who we are. Cole's heart raced as her words hung in the air. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the moment where everything would be revealed. But at what cost? What do you want me to do? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Zaire's smile widened slightly, her silver eyes glowing with a strange light. Come with me, she said, her voice low and melodic. I will show you. Without another word, she turned and began walking toward the door that led to the adjoining room. Cole hesitated for a moment, his mind racing with questions and doubts. But he knew he couldn't turn back now, not when the fate of so many lives rested on the information Zaire had to offer. He followed her, his heart pounding in his chest as the door slid open, revealing a dimly lit chamber beyond. The room was unlike anything he had seen aboard the Galactic frontier. It was adorned with strange, alien symbols etched into the walls, their glow casting an eerie light over the space. In the center of the room was a large, circular platform made of some kind of shimmering, metallic material. It pulsed faintly with a rhythmic energy, as if it were alive. Zaire stepped onto the platform and turned to face him. This is an ancient Zather device, she explained, her voice echoing softly in the chamber. It will allow you to see into the mind of the Zather, to understand our history, our culture, our struggles. Only then will you truly understand what is at stake. Cole hesitated at the edge of the platform, his mind racing with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. This was unlike anything he had ever encountered before. The thought of stepping into the unknown, of exposing his mind to an alien technology, was both thrilling and terrifying. Zaire extended her hand toward him, her gaze steady and unwavering. Trust me, Captain. This is the only way. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Cole's heart raced, and the weight of the decision pressed down on him. But in the end, he knew there was no other choice. If he wanted to stop the war, if he wanted to save humanity, he had to trust her. With a deep breath, he stepped forward and took her hand. The moment their hands touched, the platform beneath them flared to life, its pulsing energy surging through his body like a shockwave. His vision blurred, and the room around him seemed to dissolve into a swirling vortex of light and sound. Then, in an instant, everything went dark. Chapter 4. The Point of No Return. When Captain Cole's vision cleared, he stood in a place that defied comprehension. The vast alien landscape before him was nothing like the sterile halls of the galactic frontier or the harsh terrains of any planet he had visited. It was a realm of shifting light and shadow, where the ground beneath his feet felt simultaneously solid and fluid. He couldn't tell if he was inside a mind, a memory, or some other dimension entirely. The sky above him swirled with colors that didn't exist in any spectrum he knew, and massive structures loomed in the distance, great monoliths of alien architecture that seemed to hum with ancient energy. They pulsed rhythmically, as though the entire landscape was alive, breathing, aware of his presence. Zaire stood beside him, though her form was more ethereal, her outline glowing softly against the strange surroundings. She seemed at ease here, as if this place was as natural to her as the human world was to Cole. Her eyes glowed with that familiar silver light, more intense now, as if they were windows into some deeper reality. Where are we? Cole asked, his voice sounding strange in this place, like it was being absorbed by the very air. This, Zyare said, sweeping her arm in a wide arc, is the shared memory of my people, the essence of the Zather. You are not merely seeing this, you are within it. This is our collective consciousness, our history, our truth. Cole's heart raced as he processed her words. How is this possible? Zyare looked at him, her gaze softer now, almost compassionate. Our minds are not like yours, Captain. The Zather have evolved not just as individuals, but as a collective species. We are connected in ways that go beyond physical reality. Our memories, our experiences, they are shared, stored in the very fabric of our being. What you are seeing now is the culmination of millennia of history, conflict, and survival. Cole stared out at the landscape, trying to comprehend the enormity of what she was telling him. He had known the Zather were advanced, but this was something else entirely. A species that could connect its members through a shared consciousness, that could store its history within the very essence of its being. This was a level of intelligence and power that humanity had barely begun to imagine. What do you want me to see? Cole asked, turning to face her. Zyare's expression grew serious again. I want you to understand why we fight, why this war is inevitable unless we act. You see the factions among my people, Captain, the ones who seek to break free from this collective, who believe the Zather should conquer and dominate the galaxy. They want to sever our connection, to replace our unity with chaos. And if they succeed, your people will be the first to fall. As she spoke, the landscape around them shifted. The towering monoliths faded away, replaced by images moving, living images that surrounded them like a vast, immersive theater. Cole found himself standing in the midst of a massive battle, Zather warriors clashing with each other, their weapons crackling with energy as they tore through the air. It was a war unlike any he had seen, both brutal and beautiful in its choreography. The warriors moved with precision, their every action coordinated as if they were part of a larger whole. This is the beginning of the schism, Zyare said quietly, her voice filled with sorrow. The moment when the first faction broke away. They believed that the Zather's strength should be used to dominate, to control the weaker species of the galaxy. They rejected the balance, the unity that had kept us whole for so long. Cole watched as the scene unfolded before him. The battlefield was chaotic, but it was clear that one side was more ruthless, more aggressive. He could see the rage in their movements, the desire for power that fueled their attacks. It was terrifying to witness, and even more terrifying to realize that this was just the beginning. The scene shifted again, and now Cole found himself standing in a vast Zather city. The architecture was unlike anything he had ever seen, grand, majestic, with towering spires that seemed to reach into the very fabric of the universe. But the city was in ruins, its once proud structures reduced to rubble. Fires burned in the streets, and the air was thick with the scent of smoke and death. Zyare's voice was quiet but steady. This is what happens when we lose our unity. This is the price of chaos. Cole turned to her, his mind racing. Why are you showing me this? Because, Zyare said, her eyes locking onto his, I want you to understand that the Zather are at a crossroads. We are on the verge of either destroying ourselves or becoming something far worse. And humanity is caught in the middle. Cole felt a chill run down his spine. You mean, if this faction wins, they'll come for us? Zyare nodded. Yes. They see humanity as a threat and obstacle to their dominance. If they gain control, they will not stop until your people are subjugated or eradicated. The weight of her words hit him like a blow. This wasn't just about avoiding a war, it was about survival. If the Zather faction that sought to dominate the galaxy won, humanity would be their first target. Cole clenched his fists, feeling a surge of anger and frustration. Then why are you fighting them alone? Why haven't you asked for our help? Zyare's expression softened, and for the first time, Cole saw something vulnerable in her eyes. Because I didn't think you would understand. I didn't think you would trust us. And I couldn't risk exposing my people's weaknesses to outsiders. Cole felt a pang of guilt. He had always seen the Zather as an enemy, but now he realized that they were fighting their own battle, one that was just as desperate as humanity's. What can we do? he asked, his voice filled with determination. How can we stop them? Zyare smiled faintly, though there was a sadness in her eyes. You can help us, Captain, but it will not be easy. The faction that seeks to conquer the galaxy is powerful, and they have many allies. If you choose to stand with us, you will be putting yourself, your crew, and your people in great danger. Cole took a deep breath, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He knew what was at stake. If he walked away now, humanity might survive for a little while longer, but eventually, the Zather faction would come for them. And when they did, it would be too late. I'll do whatever it takes, Cole said firmly. We'll stand with you. Zyare's eyes gleamed with something like hope, though it was tempered by the gravity of the situation. Then we must act quickly. The faction is already making their move. We need to strike before they can consolidate their power. The scene around them shifted once more, and Cole found himself back on the platform in his quarters. The alien landscape had faded, replaced by the familiar walls of the ship, but the weight of what he had seen still hung heavy in the air. Zyare turned to him, her expression serious. This is the point of no return, Captain. Once you make this decision, there will be no going back. Cole looked at her, his heart pounding. He knew what he had to do. Let's do this, he said, his voice steady. Together. Zyare nodded, a flicker of something unreadable passing across her face. Very well, Captain. The future of both our species depends on what happens next. Epilogue. The Dawn of Unity. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Zather Civil War erupted into full-scale conflict, with Cole and his crew fighting alongside Zyare's forces to stop the faction that sought to conquer the galaxy. It was a brutal, relentless war, but through it all, the bond between humanity and the Zather grew stronger. In the end, it was not just weapons or strategy that won the war, it was trust. Trust between two species who had once been enemies, but who had learned to see each other as allies, as partners. And as the final battle came to an end, with the last of the rogue Zather forces defeated, Cole stood beside Zyare, looking out at the stars that stretched before them. Do you think we've truly stopped them? Cole asked, his voice quiet. Zyare smiled, though it was tinged with sadness. For now, Captain. But there will always be those who seek power, who wish to dominate. Our job is to make sure that unity, not chaos, prevails. Cole nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Then we'll keep fighting. Together. And with that, the alliance between humanity and the Zather was born, an alliance forged not just in battle, but in trust, in hope, and in the belief that even the most divided of species could find common ground. As long as they were willing to take the risk,